Hey everybody, it's Onorato and company. No company just yet. It's just Onorato for now. And this is a little bit of a vacation edition. First time since we've started this show, which is now more than 3 years old, that we haven't done a fully live show this week. But there are no repeats here, no reruns. Every single interview in each segment you're going to see is new for the first time. And for the first time, we are going to do an injury segment here. There's a lot going on in the world of sports. Guys banged up, especially at the start of the baseball season. From OrthoNY Dr. Kyle Flik is going to help us out, break down what those injuries are, return timetables, and then what we should expect from players when they do come back healthy. A few on the Yankees, a couple already on the Mets. And with the NBA playoffs here, too, we're going to talk about LeBron James' injury and what we should expect from him in his late 30s with possibly a torn tendon in his right foot. Incredible interview with Alan Mack, and here is his book. It's called Razor 03. Has flown a number, thousands of different operations into war zones, and he's going to be up in the capital region in June as part of a great event for Folds of Honor, which is an incredible organization. If you're just kind of finding out about it now as I talk about it, you're not alone. I just learned about it last summer, so it's a great organization. And Alan Mack will be in the capital region June 26th for an inaugural golf outing at the Edison Club. We're also going to talk with Chris Porreca, who's the team president of the Albany FireWolves. Let's get it going. It's Masters Week. The NBA playoffs are here. Here we go.
This is Onorato and Company, sponsored by Alpha House.
All right, so as Ash and I take advantage of a little R&R, that doesn't mean the sports world stops, you know that, and you know it doesn't mean that we stop paying attention to sports, certainly. Masters Week is here. Scotty Scheffler is the defending champion. Can he make it back to back? This is such a beautiful time in the sports world. College basketball season, yes, is over with the men's and women's champions being crowned this week earlier, but we get into the major season of golf. We get into baseball season now that the year is a week old as of us doing this show right now. And we get postseason. So the NHL still has a little bit to go in the regular season, but the NBA playoffs are set and ready to go. Let's talk some golf here, though, before. Can Scheffler make it back-to-back? Here's what Vegas thinks. Rory McIlroy, the favorite to win at Augusta at plus 700. Scotty's right behind him. Here's the guy I like. I like Jon Rahm to win this year, plus 850. And then you really kind of go off the cliff to get to Spieth, Justin Thomas, Cam Smith, and then I threw in Tiger Woods, so you know kind of where Tiger is at plus 5,500. Do you want to throw a little down on him? And he pulls off a miracle. Good for you. Rahm is my pick. Certainly hard to argue with Rory being the favorite in Vegas to win it. After those top three, though, I think I like Cam Smith. He's got, he's a live golfer now, but he's got a little bit of an attitude that maybe will suit him well this weekend at Augusta. I don't know. Outside of Rory and Scotty and Rahm, who have won it, Spieth has won it. JT would be a guy for me that I'd love to see slip on a green jacket. That would be really, really cool. So I don't have a strong rooting interest in any of this. Rahm is just my prediction, but I wouldn't mind seeing Justin Thomas find a way to win it. Sam, who is a loyal viewer of ours, I know, is fired up for this weekend as he was at Augusta last year and brought back a little memento for us as part of the show. We appreciate that. And we'll be cheersing you, Sam, on Easter Sunday, which will be Masters Sunday as well. Great time to get in front of the TV and hang out with family and watch the final 18 of the Masters on Sunday. You know I'm fired up for this too. NBA playoffs, and our guests are right around the corner here again. The author, the war veteran, Alan Mack will be with us in a moment. Chris Porreca, team president of the Albany FireWolves. But the first guest you'll hear from this week is Dr. Kyle Flik from OrthoNY Dr to give us the runaround on a lot of the run through of a lot of the injuries that are going around Major League Baseball. Let me hit the playoffs, though, here for the NBA. Sacramento Kings and that historic drought, right? It was 16 years long, and they are a top 3 seed in the Western Conference, set up well. And look, if I'm the Kings, I'd rather play the Clippers than the Warriors. We'll see how that shakes out. But I'd rather play the Clippers than the defending champion Warriors, that's for sure. And I think a lot of teams are going to look at Sacramento as a mark. Like, hey, we want to play the Kings. I wouldn't wish that on a Western Conference team. And there's nobody in the West that I absolutely love to the point where I'd say Sacramento can't go beat that team, be it Denver, Memphis. Just mentioned the Clippers and the Warriors, a healthy Lakers team even. There's just nobody in the West where I would be fearful in a 7-game series if you're Sacramento. Fox and Sabonis are so good. Huerter's been incredible this year, obviously. Malik Monk off the bench. Harrison Barnes, that veteran leadership is really going to be important come playoff time. It's a good team. Obviously, the record shows it. But if they get home court advantage, especially in their series that they play, look out. Sacramento's a really good team. In the East, hit on this quickly here. The Knicks and Cavs should be a fun first-round series. That one I'm looking forward to, certainly. If we can glean anything from late in this regular season, just a week ago, we saw the Celtics beat the Bucks by 41 points. So who's more likely to get back here, Golden State or Boston? To me, it's Boston. They've got everything going for them. They were the number 1 seed in the East for the majority of this year. And even though the top 3 seeds in the East, probably better than the top 3 seeds in the West. So not an easy road with Milwaukee and Philly there bookending Boston. But I still would say Boston the better shot of the 2 conference champs from a year ago to get back to the NBA playoffs. It's a great time to be a sports fan. When isn't it? The baseball conversation will really pick up in earnest next week when Ash and I are both back with you live on Onorato and Company. But for now, let's take a quick time out. Dr. Kyle Flik from OrthoNY Dr breaking down the injuries that we've already seen in Major League Baseball this year and how some injuries might affect the NBA playoffs. Back on O & Co right after this.
Happiness is found in simple things. The sun on your face, sharing laughs, at the campground, getting wet, relaxing together, the love of family. There's never been a better time to go outside and play. Alpenhaus Pool Spa Boat and RV, bringing families together and creating memories since 1964.
You've heard of unsung heroes. The men and women of Nightstalker are the unseen heroes. For the past year, you've learned about our many charitable endeavors. Now it is my privilege to share with you the work performed by our members, the 20,000 state correction and law enforcement officers shielded from view. They work in difficult and dangerous conditions and are an extension of the police who protect our neighborhoods. Nightstalker honors New York's police and firefighters and salutes its own members who help deliver a peaceful night's sleep.
And now back to Onorato and Company, sponsored by Alpenhaus.
Welcome back to Onorato and Company, and first time we're going to do this, and I'm really excited about it because so many sports fans like me, we hear about our players or getting injured, and we say, how long is that going to take? And then what are they like on the other side of the injury, whether it's just straight rehab or it's a surgical procedure? And so, you know, Ash and I kick around injury stuff all the time, but we need an expert. And so that's why I'm glad we're developing a little bit of a partnership here with Dr. Kyle Flik from OrthoNY Dr. Bring him into the conversation here with spring training wrapped up, Doctor, and the NBA playoffs starting and Lamar Jackson looking for his big contract. First of all, man, thank you for doing this. This is really your brainchild. You and I met on the sidelines of an Albany FireWolves game. You're the team doctor, physician for that club locally, and I'm glad that this has just kind of evolved, and now we got our first opportunity to chat. How are you?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate you having me. Great to be here. Big fan of your show. And, hopefully this is good educational information for your viewers.
Listen, if you go to the OrthoNY website and you look up Dr. Flik, you'll see his extensive background in sports medicine. And we'll dive into that, Kyle, as we chat here, not just in this segment, but future segments as well, I hope. Let me ask you a weird one first. Doctors are like coaches in a lot of ways, where they like lose their first name over time and everybody just calls you doctor or coach. What would you say is the percentage of people in your life who just call you doctor?
I try to stay away from that. Actually, I prefer being called, Flickster or the Flicker, or the names I had back in college. I actually like. So, our family friends, their kids some of them call me DK instead of Dr. Kyle or what have you. But, around my job, it's unfortunately everyone is, they're told, hey, call him by Dr. Flik. So, but you can call me whatever you want.
I appreciate it. I think we're afraid to offend you. Like, you've done all of this work and schooling to be a doctor, and then we take it away from you. We shouldn't do that. But I like DK, I like Kyle. We'll mix them all in.
That's fine.
All right, Kyle, let's get into it here with the baseball season now here. A lot of people, and myself included, want to know how especially are these three injuries for the Yankees going to affect them going forward. Let's start with Severino because, well, I don't even want to put a timetable on it. It's a lat strain. We've seen pitchers miss extended time with lat strains. Jacob deGrom has missed a lot of time in his career because of something like this. Severino's severity with the lat strain, and then just in terms of like your history, because I know you certainly focus a lot on shoulders. How is this going to affect him this season?
Yeah, so definitely you nailed it there. The lat strain's a big one. It's very hard to predict how quickly someone might recover. Let's just back off a second and just talk about a strain. What is a strain? When we talk about strains to different muscles, we're talking about an injury to that muscle, a stretch to that muscle. If it's a low grade, they call it a grade 1, and it's just a slight separation or disturbance of the fibers of the muscle. But really, that is a relatively minor injury that people can recover within a couple of weeks typically. A grade 2 strain is where the fibers are actually, they're separated in parts of that muscle or the tendon, which is the end of the muscle. And that's a bigger injury, which, very hard to predict exactly how long something like that's going to take. And then if you talk about a grade 3 strain, that's truly a tear. Of a complete tear. So he doesn't have a complete tear as far as I know, just from what I've read, but they're calling it a grade 2 strain, which is the ones that kind of worry you because you don't know if it's going to be something that might keep him out for a few months or potentially keep getting re-aggravated.
And Severino has had specifically shoulder issues in the past. Should we be concerned that one is connected to the other and it may just really be an issue for him going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it compounds the issue, depending on the severity of his past shoulder injuries. If these were, significant injuries to the rotator cuff and, there are multiple muscles typically that will rotate the arm in different ways. And if one of them's injured, you may be putting more strain on the other one. And that's more like I think concern. A strengthening program. So, this is going to take a few months.
All right. Harrison Bader should be the opening day starting center fielder. He won't be in the lineup though, because, and this is your classic baseball injury, the old oblique muscle. It has been an issue for people like Giancarlo Stanton. And now here it is for Harrison Bader, that oblique injury. Why does this seem to be such a baseball injury?
Right. It's probably more less from throwing and more from batting. I think it's when you're rotating to hit the ball and you make contact and there's a sudden stop to that motion, there's strain on a lot of the muscles in the obliques are the ones that are really, they're basically contracting and then they're put on stretch, and that's how you can strain them or injure them. So that is one that's, and another thing is it's one of those ones that often recurs. It's one of those things like a hamstring injury seems to keep coming back, and the obliques do the same.
Buddy of mine who's a huge Yankees fan said, look, I'd rather be injured in April than in October. So there's that for Yankees fans. At least, we're not into the playoffs yet. Carlos Rodon, here's an interesting one. The fear was that he was going to need Tommy John surgery because anything attached to that throwing arm, forearm, scares teams certainly and team doctors. But this is a left forearm strain. He doesn't need Tommy John surgery. And I think the Yankees figure maybe misses half the year, but he was one of their big free agent additions that I think had people think, okay, the Yankees now are a legit contender in the American League. Yeah. Not needing the surgery, doctor, being able to rehab it, rest it. What's his potential for the 2023 season? Yeah,
definitely. That can be something that he recovers from fairly well. Usually, a lot of the strain on a baseball pitcher is on that medial elbow, right on the inner part of the elbow. That's where the ulnar collateral ligament is. That's the one that requires the Tommy John surgery if you tear it. But the flexor pronator muscles are the ones that also attach right there. Those are under a high level of strain also. And, it's wonderful when you get that MRI and you hope it's not the ligament. But these strains are also, these can be things that recur, and it can be tedious, and you think you're better and you get back out there and start throwing and you re-aggravate it, but definitely much more encouraging on that one than if he'd be out for sure till next year with the Tommy John.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. Again, we're talking with Dr. Kyle Flik from OrthoNY here on Onorato and Company, and we're going through these injuries that are hampering New York teams specifically. I have Mets fans who were screaming about the what they would say uselessness of the World Baseball Classic. I loved it, especially when we get that OrthoNY Trout matchup in the 9th inning of the championship game. But because they were jumping up and down celebrating a quarterfinal win, now the Mets don't have their closer, Edwin Diaz. You corrected me here. It's been reported, I know, that it was an ACL, but it's a patella tendon rupture. What's the difference?
Okay, so what I'm reading is that he tore his patellar tendon. And like you said, I think we saw this in football a couple years ago. I forget who it was, but they scored a touchdown and did a backflip in the end zone and injured their knee as well, tore their ACL there, I think. But Edwin Diaz ruptured his patellar tendon, which is the broad tendon that was from the and attached to the front of your shin bone. And the tendon being torn, you extend your knee. It basically disrupts the entire mechanism that allows you to straighten your legs. So this is a big injury. It's definitely a season-ending one, I would predict.
Yeah, it is.
He's probably had his surgery already, and I believe it's his right knee, which is his pushing off leg. If I'm not correct, he's a right-handed pitcher, right?
Yep.
So, and then he comes around and then lands on that leg again, right at the end of the throw. So, the baseball pitch, the reason why there's so many injuries in baseball pitchers and throwers is that to throw with the kind of velocity that these guys are throwing at, it's an enormous amount of energy that transfers all the way from their feet and legs to their core, to their lats, and then through their arm, and then there goes the ball, right? And the legs are hugely important to generate the kind of power that he generates. So, I'm not sure if this is a better injury than an ACL or a worse injury, to be honest. So this one is definitely a big loss for the Mets fans out there.
Yeah, and right, not just short-term, meaning this season. He's not yet 30 years old, so maybe the body is still young enough and will recover. It's a weird one, though. I mean, and what's funny is nobody ever seems to learn. Guys have been injured when they hit a walk-off home run and they jump onto home plate. It's a very slippery base. They slip and they injure themselves. Kendrys Morales did that with the Angels years ago. And there was even more celebrating the World Baseball Classic, guys jumping up. I would be like, hey, I'm not maybe a different year, but I'm not after what I saw with Edwin Diaz. All right, let's hop to the NFL here, Dr. Flik, with Lamar Jackson. Should teams be scared off? He doesn't have his massive guarantee contract from the Ravens yet. He's been franchise tagged. He's unhappy with that. News came out this week that he requested a trade earlier in the month of March. He missed 6 games last year with a knee injury, 4 games the year before that with an ankle injury. He plays the sport and the position, as you know, with some real risk, being a running quarterback the way he is. Should teams be scared off?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, if I were a GM looking at him, I would definitely put him through a pretty rigorous examination, and actually on field, watch him move and play. He did, I believe, have a partial injury to his PCL. You can actually, we don't generally operate on PCL tears if it's an isolated PCL tear, and it's not an uncommon injury for football players, and they generally can get back to a high level of play with that. So, that doesn't scare me away. I think a lot of the decision making is it's complex. It's not just, is he the right kind of quarterback? There's head games out there. Do players fit in the locker room? Everything else. So, I would say none of his injuries are devastating. He's in a position that scares you away. I mean, look what happened to Mahomes at the end of last season in the playoffs. He's a similar. He's someone who you kind of hold your tongue while he's running, and you just don't want him to get hurt. But now I would say that from what I'm hearing, and of course I've never examined him or watched him recently, but I think it's not something that you need to be fearful of, but it's always a risk factor for him.
Yeah. Okay. Just while we're in it here, give people, if you would, a little bit of a background on your sports medicine training, where you've been prior to OrthoNY York and the Albany FireWolves, the organizations you've worked with, and why your history and knowledge is as extensive as it clearly is.
Right. So I would say nothing overly special about my training. I'll go through it, but I think what really positions me nicely in sports medicine as a career was, a lot of the players that I take care of in this neighborhood are high school kids and college kids. And I did play sports through college and played ice hockey and lacrosse, kind of have that background, decided late in life to go back to medical school and sports medicine, and became my passion. So I was fortunate to train in New York City at the Hospital for Special Surgery, which is just a great residency program for orthopedics in general. And then I went to Rush University in Chicago, working there with Brian Cole and Romeo. These are world-renowned guys who've been taking care of the Bulls and the White Sox. Those Sox won the World Series that year, so that was kind of fun for me. And I got to help them with those teams, which was good training for me. And then I took the job here in Albany and immediately looked for teams. The teams don't always last that long in Albany, and there have been some that have come and gone, but I worked with the Buzz while they were here. That was the World Team Tennis. Yeah. I did cover the Albany Patroons for a while. They kind of came and went a little bit, and there were issues there, but and then also the Albany Empire a couple of years back. And then most recently with the Albany FireWolves, which has been really, really exciting. As you mentioned at the beginning, they're really fun to watch. Great athletes. They're like a combination of hockey players and field lacrosse players that play this box lacrosse.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You say nothing all that special. Bulls and White Sox. Hello. Yeah, not so bad. All right. Speaking of the NBA here, LeBron James is back. And he says he went to see, I love this comment, I went to see the LeBron of foot doctors. I mean, he's going third person to describe the greatness of this doctor using his own greatness. I could only be so great one day. That would be nice. He says it's a torn tendon in his right foot. He returned 4 weeks after injury. I believe he had 2 checks with doctors before he found the LeBron of foot doctors, and they both said surgery. This third doctor said, you don't need surgery, you can rehab it. He's back playing for the Lakers. Any worry that if they do make the playoffs, that he may not make it through the playoffs because of what he's dealing with?
Right. So I've been trying to figure out what tendon he may have torn. If it was a complete tear, grade 3 tear, most of the significant tendons in your feet are for an athlete of his stature are important. There are some very small tendons that I can imagine, non-operative treatment would be fine. But once you decide to not treat it surgically, usually that you have to live with that, because a lot of times the tendon retracts or scars down, and it's very difficult to get a good repair. So I'm wondering if it definitely was a full tear or not. But either way, he's back. He played pretty well. I think he did all right his first time out. And, if he's feeling well now, chances are what's healed is healed, and he should be okay going forward.
Okay. Yeah, 19 points, and he came off the bench, only the second time in his career he's done that. Obviously, he'll be back in the starting lineup. This is a freak one. And here's a guy with, I hate to use the word extensive because that's, it's not fully objective. Durant has dealt with a lot of injuries, and some very significant, particularly the Achilles a few years ago. Yeah. Now he just freakishly sprains his ankle while going up for a layup or dunk in pregame warmups before he's supposed to make his Phoenix Suns home debut. He will, in fact, do that. The ankle on Durant, how concerned are you? Should he have waited to just come back once the playoffs have started? He's missed more than 3 weeks now because of it.
Right. Well, ankle sprains are very similar to like a concussion. When you get a concussion, no one really knows how bad it is until it's cleared and you're better. And then you can look back and say, well, that was a bad concussion, or it was a mild concussion. Ankle sprains, usually these are grade 1 or 2 sprains, and a lot of basketball players have a chronic history of ankle sprains. So they actually kind of get back to their baseline pretty quickly on some of these. But, some people have a very painful ankle sprain, and they can't put weight on it, and they're on crutches for a few days, and you see them a week later and they say, wow, it's incredible. It's like miraculously it's feeling so much better. And so that was a mild sprain that was just very painful or swelled a lot or what have you. So I don't, with his situation, if he's had a history of ankle sprains, this may have just re-aggravated things, and he's got to wait for the swelling and strength to come back. And, but he's, these guys all are, you worry about them every time they come down from a jump, because they just have to land on someone else's foot and the ankle rolls. So we'll see what happens there with him.
Yeah. Well, it's a great time to be a sports fan. Obviously, we've got the baseball season underway. We've got the NBA playoffs. We've got the hockey playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll get into some NHL stuff. I can't wait. The next time we have you on, I'm going to ask you, so just, you can prepare ahead of time here. Why do we only get upper and lower body injuries in hockey? That I would love to know. The disguising of injuries in the NHL is fascinating to me. So we'll chat on that the next time we have you on, Kyle. You can call him Doctor, you can call him Kyle, you can call him DK, call him Flikster, whatever. I love the flexibility of names on a show. I can't get it wrong. That makes me feel good. Kyle, thank you, man. I really appreciate the time.
Yes,
Ashley will be with us the next time you do this, and I know we'll have more injuries to cover then. Thank you.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Teams, athletes, organizations. We're transforming the custom apparel industry through product and purpose. Claim your crown.
The Albany FireWolves professional indoor lacrosse team invites you to join us on Saturday, April 15th as we take on Albany lacrosse legend Lyle Thompson and the Georgia Swarm for Union Strong Night, presented by New York State AFL-CIO. Pre-game block party begins at 4 p.m. on South Pearl Street, featuring live music by Funk Evolution. Get in on the action as we take on the Georgia Swarm at 7 p.m. at the MVP Arena in Albany. Get your tickets now at albanyfirewolves.com. Join the pack.
And now back to Onorato and Company, sponsored by Alpenhaus.
Welcome back to Onorato and Company here. Just Chris, no Ash for the moment, but the guest I'm about to bring on certainly makes up for any host absence, that's for sure. Here's the book. And we're going to talk with the author Alan Mack, more than 35 years in the Army. His flight hours are beyond extensive. The areas around the world, the most dangerous that he has encountered, all in defense of this great country. And it is because we have people like Al Mack, who has dedicated so much time to making sure we have the lives that we're so fortunate to have. Let's bring Al Mack into the conversation here now on Onorato and Company. He'll be up in the Capital Region at the end of June for a Folds of Honor New York event at the Edison Club. Great group, Bill Miller, Sean Wilcoxon. The people who support this show from Performance Industrial are so heavily involved in the great things that Folds of Honor do. And so we are thrilled to have Alan Mack with us here on Onorato and Company. Al, first of all, thank you for your service, everything you've done, the things that you are able to detail in the book, and all the things that you aren't able to tell anybody about. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
This book is fun, and I'll be honest, I only got it a couple of days ago. So school me as somebody who did not serve in the military. This is you, right? Razor is now it's 03?
03. Razor
Yeah.
03. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is how you were referred to in certain situations, correct?
Right. So that was excuse me. That was a radio call sign from right after 9/11 when we deployed to Uzbekistan, which is just north of Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And the first several months, about 8 months over there, all of our aircraft had a Razor call sign. So it was Razor 01, 02, 03, all the way up to Razor 07. And when we left and we got swapped over with our other unit, they changed the call sign to something else.
Okay, you started as, excuse me, a mechanic.
I did.
What pulled you into the world of combat?
Well, really, the only reason I became an aircraft mechanic was because the recruiter talked me into it. I walked in thinking, back when I was younger, the Be All You Can Be commercials were great, and there was 2 or 3 of them that had to do with the aviation. So I walked into the recruiter. At the time, they had a program where you could go what they called high school to flight school. So, not really, but I mean, you kind of come off the street and do your thing. And I walked into the recruiter and said, "Hey, I want to fly helicopters." And he said, "Whoa, slow down there, kid. It's not that easy. How about you join the Army as an aircraft mechanic? You get to learn the lingo, you get to, learn the environment and, all that kind of stuff. And then you can go to flight school. And it's much easier to get in from within the service." And he was right. And I did 9 years. It's one of those things he doesn't get credit for officers, just for the enlisted guys, but he was correct. And so that's how I got in as a aviation mechanic. So I worked on 3 different types of aircraft: UH-1 Hueys, AH-1 Cobras, and OH-58s, and they were little scout helicopters. And I really enjoyed it, and it was nice because when I went to flight school, they taught us in UH-1 Hueys at the time. So I already knew everything about the aircraft mechanically, which allowed me to study, focus my study on, aeromedical things or aerodynamics. And the other, my roommate had to study all of it. So it was easy to be, I ended up the honor grad in the class. And it was probably because I didn't have to study that other stuff.
All right, let's talk about the book here, because it's incredibly detailed and incredibly raw. And when you write so many personal things, I'm just curious, like, how difficult was this? Was it difficult to do? Was it therapeutic? What was the process like for you as you detailed your military history, and also, obviously the strain that it put on personal lives?
Yeah. First of all, it was not difficult to write. And what was interesting is I had 2 authors that live nearby, friends of mine, Jim DeFelice, who wrote American Sniper, among other things, and Stephen Hartov. And one of the things that Steve Hartov did is he read my first manuscript, and he, as I was writing it, I didn't have the whole thing written, but I had several chapters. And he said, you special ops guys, you make getting shot at sound like you're ordering bagels, when you tell the story. And he goes, you got to have feeling. You got to, expose all these things. So I was like, all right. So I just dug in, it's like, all right, here we go. This is how I felt. And therapeutic, I don't know that I would call it therapeutic, but it did help me remember some things that I kind of suppressed, actually. But like I would tell people, my first wife, this is in the book, had a prescription opioid addiction, which was made worse by my deployments, or at least it got out of hand because I was gone. And I would tell people when I moved up here to New York, I was married 26 years, and really only the last 2 years were, she was pure hell. And as I wrote the book, I realized it really had been going, up and down for the whole time, and I just didn't realize it until I got to look back on it for the book.
I don't know. It's right at the top. So I don't know that you can do better than high praise from General Petraeus when you're writing a book about military operations. But were there points where you thought, maybe I better not put this in the book? I don't know how that will be received.
Yeah, well, the whole book I was afraid of, the guys in the special operations community generally don't like books, about the community. I felt that because of the way I left the unit, I'd done 17 years in the unit. I was a flight lead, which is a very prestigious position. I was involved. The reason I had so many exciting stories in that book is because of my position. So I was involved in a lot of things. And so I was kind of concerned that, I'd get some hate, but I didn't. Everybody was very supportive. They actually asked me to write a second book, which we're working the contract on that right now. But the special operations community has been super supportive. And, this had to get through the DOD Office of Pre-Publication Security Review. So they did redact some things on me. Although, one of the things that I did when I was in the 160th, that unit, is that when we had reporters or journalists or VIPs come, I was usually the person who would give the briefings. So I kind of knew what I could and couldn't say, and I tried to stay away from things. I was kind of surprised at the things they did redact, but they got to make their paycheck, I guess. And that's kind of how that went.
We interview a lot of athletes and coaches on this show in particular, Al, and I often ask them questions like, boy, before you're setting up for a game-winning field goal with the Super Bowl on the line, how do you block out whatever negative thoughts might seep in? None of that is life and death. How does a soldier at your level maintain the calmest of natures when it warrants it, knowing that you are flying directly into enemy territory?
It's a couple of things. First is personality. The 160th is a all volunteer unit, so it's not like you're forced into it. So you kind of already have the mentality. They do psychological profiling and all that stuff to weed people out that maybe can't do it. And then really it's training. Training. You have to practice, same as any sports team. The more you practice and get, good at your task, you just go to muscle memory and you just do it. I was interviewing a fellow pilot the other night for the second book, and he was recounting a hostage rescue that he did, and they got stuck in a valley where they couldn't get out. They just kept getting shot at by Chechens and in Afghanistan with heavy caliber guns. And I got goosebumps just listening to him. And he's like, I don't even know how I did it. And I'm like, well, I know how you did it. It's just it's training. You focus on what you're doing, the task at hand.
It's incredible. I had the great privilege of flying in a B-25 bomber. This is many years ago. When my first job was up in Watertown, New York, where Fort Drum is. Yeah. And so my dad served in the Army. I have a great appreciation for our men and women who bravely put their lives on the line for us. That, though, experience of covering Fort Drum gave me an even greater appreciation. Then I'm in this B-25 bomber, and I'm thinking, how the heck did 18-year-olds get into this flying tin can and do what they did? I know we use the greatest generation phrase quite often, but it extends even beyond the World War II crowd for sure. And you're obviously included in that group. Is there a military aircraft that you weren't able to fly that you wish you'd had the chance to?
Probably the AH-1 Cobra. As a mechanic, I got to ride in it once in a while in the front seat. It's a 2-seater. Yeah. But I would have loved to have flown that. It's a cool aircraft.
Yeah. The book details so many of the stories that we won't get into here. I want people to go buy and go read the book, and you can get it on Al's website. It's alancmack.com is the easiest place to get it. He will even personalize a copy of the book for you, right? I saw that featured on your website too, Alan. Yep. And there's a second book coming. We just learned here too, which is very cool, in the process of doing that as well. You'll also be up in the Capital Region end of June. I want to make sure people know about this great event, Folds of Honor, which I was just introduced to last fall. And there's a great group of people in New York, the New York chapter that heads this thing up, that is bringing you up as part of the inaugural golf tournament to speak at the Edison Club on June 26th. What is it about your service and experience that still has you involved in organizations like Folds, which does so many great things for the families and children of our service members?
I think it is, the same thing that drew me into the Army, really, is I just wanted to serve. And then as, time went by, I got into the special operations community, and there was nothing better than rescuing somebody, or, whether it's a hostage, a terrorist or doing stuff, or you got bad guys that are blowing people up and you can stop them. It really feels good to take a bad guy off the battlefield, or to rescue somebody that is in need. And, when I retired from the military, I was lucky enough to stumble into public service. So I work, in emergency services here in Orange County, and it's kind of the same thing. Instead of serving the nation, I'm serving my county and the residents and the citizens here. And I don't know how to describe it other than it just feels good to do that.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing you speak about your experiences for this Folds of Honor event, which, again, does so much in the way of scholarships for family members and children of our service members. Okay. Remind me again, how many flight hours do you have to your credit?
I just rounded off at 6,700. It's probably a little more than that, but yeah. So that's a lot for an Army aviator.
Yeah, and more than half, right, or roughly half anyway, was with night vision goggles.
Right.
Are you more comfortable driving at night than during the day?
No. But I used to be. But no, night vision goggles are amazing. When I first joined the Army, not the Army, the Army Aviation, when I went to flight school, the older guys hated NVGs, the night vision goggles, because the technology wasn't quite there. The visual acuity was about 2040, maybe 2050, right? So it was very difficult to fly with those things. And then as time went by, I think it's like 2035 now, which is pretty good. I enjoyed it.
It's incredible. Well, Alan, continued success with the book. Here it is again. Razor 03, A Nightstalker's Wars. You can get it on Al's website right now. You see it on your screen. alancmack.com is the easiest way to get this incredible. I know that we're calling it a memoir, and it's raw, it's detailed, and I can't wait to get my hands on the second book when that comes around. But I certainly hope I get to meet you in person, Alan, on June 26th at the Edison Club up here in the Capital Region, part of that Folds of Honor event. Again, can't say it enough. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your time here joining the show.
Thank you.
Whether you're into lounging, cruising, or just relaxing, summer fun starts with Alpenhaus. Enjoy a smooth ride that'll change the way you boat forever on a Barletta pontoon powered by Mercury Outboard. Nobody makes a more reliable, powerful lineup of outboard motors than Mercury to continue propelling your adventures. Now's the perfect time to buy a new Barletta pontoon with the legendary performance of a Mercury outboard. Alpenhaus, Route 30 Amsterdam, and alpenhausboats.com.
At Marcella's Appliance Center, our commitment is to you, providing essential appliances that families depend on. For cooking, refrigeration, cleaning, and sanitation, plus appliance repair, you can have peace of mind that Marcella's is here for you today and every day, like we have been since 1957, helping you make the right choice with trusted brands like Whirlpool, Maytag, KitchenAid, and many more. Shop Marcella's Appliance Center in-store, online, or by phone. We're here for you.
And now back to Onorato and Company, sponsored by Alpenhaus.
Welcome back to Onorato and Company. We've got a couple of weeks here where we're waiting for the FireWolves to come back to town, but with the good weather on its way, we're going to have 3 straight home games to end this season. And I know I said it a couple of weeks ago, I love the way the franchise is approaching this year. The worst thing you can do in professional sports is be in limbo where you half try, but half know you're rebuilding and it gets you nowhere. And so a lot of the moves have been made here by the FireWolves to try to load up for next year with either draft picks or young, talented guys who can really help this team in the future. It is our Follow the Pack segment. Let's bring in the team president to the conversation here, Chris Porreca. Chris, good to see you, man. Thanks for doing the show as always. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me. Really excited.
So let's talk about the 3 home games to end the year. Like I said, the weather's good. Hopefully people motivates people to go out and do some things. This is a great thing to do in downtown Albany, obviously building off the momentum of an NCAA tournament. And now 3 straight home games to end the year. How much does that make life easier? Obviously, it makes you guys busier in the office, I'm sure. But does it make life easier to know, look, we've got momentum here of 3 straight weeks in front of our home fans?
Yeah, I think for the National Lacrosse League, this is an oddity, right? In the scheduling that we have 3 games to end the season. But I love it. I think it gives us the momentum going into April with back-to-back games. It allows us to really kind of wait, like next game is next week. Here we go, rocking and rolling, right? And it allows us to also, as we kind of come into the end of the season, to start talking about next season with all the fans coming in. And, we've gone on sale with new season tickets and we're renewing all of our current season ticket holders. So it gives us that the spring, as we're into spring, right? The spring into next year and get some W's here as we roll out the season.
All right, so here are what those 3 games look like to end the year. It's a Saturday, a Sunday, and a Saturday. So the Sunday game, I know isn't totally rare. Like the NLL plays on Friday nights sometimes too. This is your only Sunday game of the year, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's our only Sunday game. And the good thing is it's a great day for us. It's a family day, and it happens to be at 3 o'clock, so earlier in the day. So it's fun. It gets people in, it gets them home, and at the time that they're used to on a Sunday, and getting ready for the next school day or whatever they need to do at work. And so it's something that has been successful in other leagues. I know when I was in the American Hockey League, Sundays were actually better than Friday nights for us, and especially having the games earlier. So I'm excited to see what it does here in Albany, and with some of our things coming up over the last 3 games.
Georgia, Philadelphia, Buffalo. If nothing else, you guys get to play a little bit of a spoiler here. I know that isn't the objective of any team going into a season, but you can at least stand in the way of some teams or make life a little more difficult on them, so you're remembered next year like, oh, hey, this is the Albany team that kind of tripped us up towards the end of the year. I don't know if that's the conversation Clarkie's having with his guys, but it's at least something here, right, to host these 3 teams and maybe trip them up along the way, right?
Yeah, I think anytime that you talk to Coach Clark and hear his philosophy, it's we want to win. We want to win every single game we play, no matter what our record is and who's coming into town. But yeah, it's great as we look at Georgia, Philadelphia, and Buffalo. Georgia with the connection to UAlbany with Lyle and Miles there, and then Philadelphia with some Reseteras, who went there this year, and then Buffalo is always a battle for us. And so I think there's a lot of, kind of crossover of what these teams mean to us, and showing them that, Albany is a tough place to play. And we've seen that over the last couple of home games, and it may not be on the win column, but the fans have really helped, and the players are digging deep, and they're playing some good lacrosse, and we're looking forward to these 3 games.
Yeah, they've been, and we've talked about it kind of all year long, the close games that you guys have been in, and many of them have been defensive battles, but a lot of them have been tight, and they've been tight recently as well. Okay, I know you heard me say it before I brought you in here, and I forget who I said it to a few weeks ago now, but it was a little bit of the reset where it was clear you guys are going to build through the draft, and you've already acquired some young talent. Like I think it was probably Powis who I said it to, because Marshall Powis comes in, and I thought, okay, here's a guy who is a top 10 pick, young player, skilled, and obviously a move from this Albany FireWolves franchise to build towards next year. Is that what you're doing? And if it is, when did you really kind of look at the situation and decide, let's flip the switch here and build towards next year? We've got a lot of draft capital, and we can even acquire more.
Yeah, as you look at the season, there's, you never are, want to say you're out of it, but there is a point during the season that you start to look at, okay, where are we going to end up, and what's our future look like? And some of this stuff just falls, into place. It may not even be a plan right away, but as you move forward, and talking to Coach Clark and everything that they do from a lacrosse operations, these things sometimes are kind of just are there at the right times, and it's the right time to make moves. So it's kind of never something that you necessarily say, oh, this is how we're going to go about it, but it definitely is always on your mindset. Even at the start of the season, you're always looking at how do you make your team better? And I think that's the important thing, is we're always, how do we make this Albany FireWolves team better? And at some point now, we're looking towards, the future, and trying to get through these 3 games right now, and then, ready for a home run in the next season as well.
So maybe this question's better suited for Clarky, but I'll ask you anyway, as I'm sure you're part of the conversation, says he's the GM. When you have all the draft capital you guys have, how quickly are you looking at who may be potential fits when draft time rolls around? And I'll remind people too that because of the COVID year, things are weird where you guys made draft picks and they're not yet on the team. So it's almost like you have 2 drafts in one, probably.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a question for Coach Clark, and as he's our GM as well, and he can better explain that. I know that for as we go into the draft season, we're looking to get the best draft picks we can, and the highest draft picks we can, and there may even be more wheeling and dealing as we get into that time. It's right now the focus is just finishing out the season strong, and like you said earlier, showing these other teams that no matter what our record is, that the Albany FireWolves are a tough team to play against, and when you come to Albany, it's all business.
Chris, last thing, you mentioned Family Day on that Sunday. That's 4/23 against Philadelphia. For somebody who hasn't gone to a FireWolves game yet, I mean, this is only year 2. So for somebody who hasn't been to a FireWolves game yet, and they're thinking about, hey, let's do something when the weather's better, we can go out downtown and have something to eat, go to a bar before the game, or whatever you want to do. What is it about this box lacrosse experience and what makes it unique that people should check out and at least give it a shot, even if they aren't a diehard lacrosse fan?
Well, I think that's what I've talked about all season with fans coming in, is we're an entertainment team. We're an entertainment business, right? Like the lacrosse is part of what that entertainment is. But if you haven't been to a game, there is music the whole time that gets you rocking and rolling, gets you out of your seat, sing-alongs. We have, different fan cams to interact with our fans, and we have kids on the field during different times in the game. We've got, kids high-fiving the players as they run out. We've got kids on the field at the intermissions. We do post-game autographs with our players. I think, from start to finish, there is something for everybody. You do not have to be a lacrosse fan to enjoy what we're putting on here at the MVP Arena. And I think, we've got 3 games to show people here at the end of the year. And the good thing is these 3 games are going to include block parties. So, 2 hours leading up to doors opening each game. We're going to have some block parties out here on Pearl Street with some bands and rocking and rolling. And, we're looking forward to that and ending the season strong. And, so my saying is come on down and experience what we're all about.
Yeah, you'll be a lacrosse fan when you leave, that's for sure. We buried the lead there a little bit. The block parties are a big deal. People will absolutely love that experience before going into the game. So very cool. There are your 3 home games, everybody. April 15, 23, 29, as you heard Chris say. Block parties to lead up before those games and Family Day on 4/23. Chris Porreca, who is the team president of this Albany FireWolves squad, thank you as always for the time, man. I appreciate you doing the show, being part of the show each and every week as well, with your partnership with us. And I know I'm taking you up on it. I will be at one of these final 3 games at least. So I will let you know about that, and maybe I'll just bother my wife about it.
Awesome. We look forward to having you anytime you want to stop by. So go FireWolves.
Cool. Thank you, Chris. Be well, man. That is the team president of the Albany FireWolves. We'll come back on Onorato and Company in less than a minute. Back right after this.
I don't care what kind of stories that's been told on you. That may be a lot of things in life you used to do. If you can't give true love to me, I'll understand. Just do the best you can.
Michelob Ultra, 2.6 carbs and 95 calories.
And now back to Onorato and Company, sponsored by Alpen House.
All right, one more time, welcome back to Onorato and Company as we wrap things up this week. Hope you enjoyed our guests. A little bit of a different format for us with Ash and I out of town for part of the week, but still some great information there from Dr. Kyle Flik from OrthoNY Dr. A couple of injuries that we didn't have a chance to talk with him about as it was recorded ahead of time. Justin Verlander's injury, obviously, with the Mets, and I'm sure Mets fans are thinking, well, we got a couple of pitchers at 40 years old, but how much can we rely on them? And I would say this, better to be injured now than in September or October. I'm not saying that they won't get hurt, because I do think that it's a very tenuous situation with what you're going to get from Scherzer and Verlander, but better to have it now and let these guys, Verlander specifically, rehab it and get back to health. And then Max Fried, the ace of the Atlanta Braves staff, who a lot of people are picking to win that division, me included, leaves opening day with a hamstring injury. So 2 important pitching injuries to keep an eye on with Verlander and Fried. When we are back next week live here on Onorato and Company, we'll get into the Stanley Cup playoffs as we will know the matchups and the seedings. I'm fired up. Devils are having a great year. I'm fired up, certainly. And because the deeper we get into April, the closer we get to the NFL draft. Movement on Lamar and Aaron, and then who goes at the top of the draft at the quarterback position. Looking forward to doing all of that and really taking a deep dive into what we've seen from the first couple of weeks of the Major League Baseball season when we're with you next week on Onorato and Company. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend.